Greetings. Hello. So glad you're watching our replay and you're here live. We're so grateful to each of you for being here live to support the Women's Coaching and Consulting Council, our beautiful and awesome and so smart and so gifted and so bright Trisha Bright, esteemed faculty member in our council. We get the great privilege to hear Trisha talk about a really important topic for all of us. And if you're a coach, consultant, trusted advisor, thought leader, speaker, author, et cetera, building a movement around the world, this topic that Trisha is speaking about today is very important. We've got to be boosting our performance, our impact, our well-being using what Trisha is going to talk about, mental fitness. So we'll introduce Trisha in just a moment. So glad that you're here watching our broadcast. We're so excited. We've got 50,000 plus views on our YouTube channel. And so we're welcoming you to watch the replay as well, wherever you are around the world at any time. I'm Kathleen Caldwell, founder of C-Suite Network's Women's Coaching and Consulting Council. I am a speaker and author. I am a woman who's all things coaching and consulting, been a coach since 1998. And I'm most importantly, ballroom dancing partner to my beloved husband, Michael. So you're in the right place if you want to be partnered up with fabulous women who are on a mission. And so speaking of which, our programs this month in the Women's Coaching and Consulting Council have all been about celebrating women. We had a tremendous program last week celebrating women on International Women's Day. And of course, it's International History Month for women. So we're celebrating the whole month. Trisha's here on that idea. Last week's programs, the theme was all about how to win it and how to own it, how to own our power, our presence, our profits, and our success. We had speakers every day. It was really terrific. Sheila Anderson talked about how to own your presence on camera, in person, on the stage, in groups, wherever you are on your podcasts, wherever you are, how to own your powerful presence. It was a great program. And of course, Trisha Ben talked about how to own your profits. Very important. She closed out our beautiful Success Summit with some great ideas about how to own your money, how to own your impact in the world, and tithing and all kinds of just great distinctions. And of course, I spoke to the power of how to own your power and how to own your success. We had great group conversations and discussions. It was very rich. It was awesome. So be sure, watch the replay on our YouTube channel. And we're so excited. I think we're now up to 80 different broadcasts. And so literally, this is a treasure trove of great content being featured by smart, great, esteemed faculty members. So check out our YouTube channel, and we can't wait for you to comment below and, comment below the videos. Tell us about the things you love the best. And there's a lot to choose from. I hear it all the time. So with that, our theme for our council is really the whole secret why we're here is we bring forward best of class, world-class speakers, coaches, consultants, trusted advisors to our podium here. And we have a global platform supported by C-Suite Network. We're so excited about that. And we really think that the real secret to success these days is, of course, power together. Not power over, power instead of, that type of thing. But no, it's locking arms, supporting each other in a collaborative environment, lifting each other up. And that's our motto within our council. And so with that, I would love to welcome to our stage our speaker for today, Trisha Bright. She is an incredible person. I've had the great privilege of getting to know her, and she's truly an expert. I'd love to let you know that she's a former marketing executive and CEO in the tech business. Today, she's a transformational speaker. She's an emotional intelligence expert and mental performance coach. She helps high-performing executives and high-performing people around the world to achieve radical success without sacrificing happiness and well-being, the total package, right? Using science-based mental fitness training, Trisha empowers her clients to take control of their emotions and eliminate self-defeating thoughts. and habits and behavior patterns that block all of us from reaching our full potential. She's the founder of Trisha Bright Coaching and creator of the Positive Intelligence Academy. Be sure to check her out on LinkedIn. And I think the thing that is so inspiring to me, Trisha, about you is that your mission is to help and to empower 500,000 people to achieve emotional mastery so that each of them can fully thrive and enjoy unlimited success, satisfying relationships, and enduring happiness and well-being. So with that, please welcome to our global stage, Trisha Bright. So happy that you're here, bringing brightness to our Women's Coaching and Consulting Council. So glad you're here, Trisha. Turning the podium over to you.
Thank you so much. It's such a privilege to be here, and I appreciate this opportunity. And thank you to the lovely women who are here live today and to those who are joining in the replay. Excited to share this content with you. So let me just get my slides going. And there we go. Is everybody seeing my screen? Perfect. Okay. Well, it really is my great pleasure to be speaking to you today about a topic that I'm incredibly passionate about. It is called mental fitness, and we're going to be diving right in. So I want to start with a statistic that I find quite remarkable, and that is that only 1 in 5 people ever fully reach their maximum potential. That's only 20% of us. Now, I look at that as an incredible opportunity, an opportunity for more of us to step into what's possible for us. And so what we're going to be talking about today is, why is it that it's only 1 in 5 people who reach their full potential? And how do you become one of those 1 in 5 people? That's what I want for all of you. So what we're going to be talking about today is different. This is not based on theory. These are not ideas that I've made up myself. This is actually based on deep scientific research coming out of organizations like Harvard and Stanford and MIT. So some really smart people have worked on this body of work. We're also going to go beyond the surface. We're not going to just stay at the conceptual level. I really want you to understand what's going on under the covers, what's driving some of your current behavior patterns. And lastly, what I'm going to be sharing is all based on proven results. There are hundreds of thousands of people around the world that are practicing mental fitness and are getting phenomenal results, and really transformative things are happening for them in their lives. So let's dive in. My promise to you today is that I do 2 things. Number 1, that I deliver a lot of new knowledge and insight that you probably don't, I'm assuming you don't already have. And secondly, is that you walk away with some new know-how, that you're not just getting excited about some ideas on some new concepts, but that you actually understand what it's going to take for you to get to your next level. So here's what I know to be true. Here are the big challenges that I know high achieving, type A, go-getter women routinely experience. Number 1, we tend to fall on that spectrum of overworking, and as a result, feeling out of balance a lot of the time, not really having our footing. We experience routinely high levels of stress, and as a result, we're very prone and vulnerable to landing up in burnout, which is something we all want to avoid. And we all have this deep underlying belief and knowing that there's more available to us, that we're capable of more, but we're not sure how to unlock it. Let me know if this is sounding familiar to you. Yes, okay. And by the way, this is through lived experience. I know these things personally. Now, what I know that you all want is that you do want to have that maximum performance and impact. That's why we show up. That's why we're so committed to the work that we do. But we want it to stop coming at the expense of our health and our relationships and our well-being, that those trade-offs are not sustainable, and it's not what we want for ourselves. So we do really want to have it all, and that's what I'm inviting you to explore with me today. And then lastly, we want to be able to enjoy the success that we've already created and be happy with where we are today, and really know what our life experience looks like outside of striving for the next big achievement. Let me know if this is resonating with you. Great. Okay, well, we only have a limited amount of time today. So my goal is to deliver a lot of value, but I want you to know I'm going to be moving pretty quickly. So I would encourage you, if you have a pen and a piece of paper handy, you might want to jot down whatever it is that resonates with you. The other thing is I really want you to take this as an invitation to be fully present, to put down your phones, turn off your notifications, and just give yourself this brief period of time to learn something that can truly change your life. That's what I'm excited to share with you. So what brings me to the stage today, and what has me so excited about mental fitness? Well, I can remember this day as though it happened yesterday. My husband and I were sitting in our kitchen at the table. It was a Sunday morning. And it was probably about 11 o'clock, and we were both still in our pajamas. It was probably, we were probably on about our third cup of coffee. We had been out late the night before at our daughter's school at a fundraising auction event, and it was an 80s themed costume party. Now, some of you may recognize the character that I went dressed up as. I was one of the Robert Palmer girls, and my husband had gone dressed as a band member of the band Devo. And he'd worn that funny red hat that looks like an upside down flower pot. And everybody who was at that party had really gone all out with their costumes. So my husband had taken lots and lots of pictures, and we were scrolling through the photos on his phone, and he got to one particular photo, and my heart just sank in my chest. It was a photograph of me. And in that moment, I could no longer deny a truth that I'd been running from and hiding, not only from myself, but working really hard to hide from everybody else. And that was how deeply, deeply unhappy I was at that time in my life. Now, this didn't make a lot of sense. I was at the height of my career as a corporate marketing executive, and I had all the outward trappings of having made it, having been a successful businesswoman. We lived in a beautiful home. Our twin daughters were happy and healthy and thriving. I drove the car of my dreams, and I had all the clothes, and we took the beautiful vacations. And yet the truth was I was really unhappy inside. And I think why I fought so hard to hide that was I didn't want to disappoint anybody. So I kept up that facade. And B, I didn't understand it. It didn't make sense to myself. I didn't feel like I had a right to be unhappy because I had so much going for me. But the truth is what I was really feeling inside, if I was being totally honest, was incredible amounts of stress, a fair amount of resentment and anger, and really a lot of frustration about a life situation that really wasn't adding up for me. And I don't know about you, but when I'm feeling those kinds of emotions, there's no way that I'm showing up as my best self for my husband. And our relationship, if I'm being totally transparent, was not great at that time. I couldn't be the best parent at all times. And what I was noticing is that in my professional life at work, I was starting to pull back. I was starting to hold back for new opportunities. I was starting to experience conflict with coworkers, things that had really not happened to me up until that point. So I really had to take a big step back and understand what was going on here. And so that sent me on a journey of learning and discovery and investing in myself. And ultimately, my big revelation was that mental fitness is the only way to experience the sustained high performance and impact that I was still committed to without sacrificing my happiness and well-being. So let's talk about it. What is mental fitness? Well, this is all based on a body of work called Positive Intelligence by a man named Shirzad Chamine. There's a phenomenal New York Times bestselling book that I highly encourage you to read. Now, positive intelligence is actually gives us the ability to measure the percentage of the time that our brain is working for us as opposed to working against us. And there's a threshold number. And if you're below the threshold, which is 75, then your brain is actually acting as your enemy more often than it's acting as your friend. And that's creating all sorts of negative outcomes for you. Now, mental fitness is what we use to increase our positive intelligence or our PQ score. So let's talk about that. So the definition of mental fitness is the capacity to respond to life's challenges from positive rather than negative mindset. And let's face it, life feels like one big series of challenges, whether it's in our personal lives or our professional lives. It's usually the two that come together. There's always something that life is throwing in our path. And the question is, how do we respond? Now, the impact of mental fitness is peak performance, peace of mind and well-being, and healthy relationships. So it really does end up being the trifecta of everything that we want. As women, we want to have it all, and this is your gateway into having that. So, as I mentioned, this is all based on deep scientific research coming out of 4 areas: positive psychology, performance science, neuroscience, cognitive behavioral psychology, and then all of the additional research that has been layered in through the positive intelligence movement. Now, this has been tested on hundreds of CEOs and their executive teams. I use it with my own executive clients, Stanford Business School athletes and students of the business school and Stanford athletes, other world-class athletes, and over 500,000 people from 50 countries. So there's a strong foundation behind this. And really what the secret sauce is, where positive intelligence came in, is they synthesized those 4 branches of science and applied factor analysis to come up with some brand new insights. Now, I'm going to briefly talk to you about what factor analysis is. Factor analysis is what allows us to determine the root cause. When there are multiple variables at play, it really simplifies things down so we can really understand the causality between what we're observing and what's causing the outcomes that we're observing. Now, an example of where factor analysis has been highly instrumental, and one that we all know and understand, is that factor analysis is what helped discover that at the root of the thousands of colors that are available are only 3 colors: red, blue, and green, which in infinite combinations produce the beautiful range of colors and a palette of colors that are available to us all. So that's the same dynamic. And what we learned from the factor analysis in the positive intelligence body of work is that at the core of mental fitness, there are 3 key muscles that we need to develop. And they are the saboteur interceptor, the sage, and the self-command. Now, of course, none of these mean anything to you at this point in time, so I'm going to walk you through this. But I first just want to level set and let you know what's really going on in your brain. We tend to think of the brain as a single organ, but in fact, there are 2 very distinct regions of the brain. And that's what makes it feel like we're sometimes at war with ourselves. And in one region of the brain, there are 10 saboteurs. This is what the factor analysis has identified. These are 10 ways, very discrete, definable, and easily measurable ways that we all tend to self-sabotage. On the other side of the brain are what we call the 5 sage powers. This is the part of the brain that serves us. And what we now know through mental fitness is that you can shift the balance of power so that your mind is more often serving you as opposed to undermining you. Now, it's important to understand that the saboteur region of the brain has become very strong from overuse over the years, whereas the sage part of the brain is relatively weak. It is why that it needs special attention. So let's dive into each of these core mental muscles. Let's talk about the saboteur interceptor. What does that really mean? Well, to really understand this, you need to understand who the saboteurs are. And the core ringleader of all saboteurs is the voice of the judge. This saboteur is present in all of us. And you may hear it loudly or you may not hear it at all, but it's present and active and absolutely undermining your life, your results. And there are 3 modes of the judge. And the judge's job, what the judge is really good at, is identifying what's wrong or bad with 3 different areas. First, with ourselves. You may recognize this as the voice of the inner critic. This is the voice that wakes us up in the middle of the night and says, oh my gosh, why did you say that yesterday in that meeting? Or it wakes you up in the middle of the night telling you that you're not going to perform well the next day. And it loves to criticize ourselves and tell us all of the things and all of the ways that we're deficient. The judge also likes to turn its attention to other people, which is why you'll notice yourself wondering why that person dresses a certain way, or why do they behave in a certain way. It's always looking out for what's wrong or bad with others. And it's looking at our own circumstances and outcomes and saying, I can't be happy. I won't be happy until something else has changed, until I have a bigger house, or I've gotten another promotion, or I've landed that big client. And it's constantly berating us with these negative thoughts. Now, I told you that there are 10 saboteurs. I want to introduce you to the other 9. These are the controller, the hyperachiever, the restless, the stickler, the pleaser, the hypervigilant, the avoider, the victim, and the hyperrational. These are habitual mind patterns that we have, and each of these has their own distinct voice, beliefs, and assumptions, and they are constantly working against our best interests. Now, nobody is being sabotaged by all 10 saboteurs at the same time. Typically, there are 2 or 3 that are considered accomplice saboteurs that are activated by the judge and that are highly responsible for the own self-undermining patterns that you have personally. The way that we help you identify these is through a very simple assessment tool. And what I'm sharing here with you are the results from my own personal assessment. And so you can see that I have the hyperachiever saboteur and an avoider saboteur. And the important thing is, and the reason why we want to shine light on these is so that you can begin to start to recognize the patterns so that you can begin to interrupt that pattern and intercept them. So when you do an assessment, you also get a report that gives you very clear descriptions around the characteristics of of each saboteur. And what you can't see on this chart are some of the common thoughts that you'll have and the impact that it's having on you personally. And this, again, is where you start to build that saboteur interceptor muscle, because you start to recognize the pattern and how it's impacting you on a day-to-day basis. So some other things to know about the saboteurs as opposed to the sage, which is their counterpart, the positive part of your brain. The saboteurs are generated out of the brainstem, the limbic system, and parts of the left brain region. The sage, on the other hand, are generated in your prefrontal cortex. They involve the empathy circuitry and parts of the right brain. So again, that notion that we have a single brain is a false notion, and that there really are 2 distinct regions that are at play. And what we want to be able to do is shift out of that negative generating saboteur mode and get into that positive sage mode. Now, saboteurs like to motivate us through negative emotions like fear and stress, anger and guilt, shame, insecurity. I could name many, many others. In comparison with the sage that motivates you through positive emotions like empathy or curiosity, creativity, passion, and purpose. Now, it's true that the saboteurs can get us some positive results. I have been there. I stressed my way into a great deal of achievement, but also unhappiness. Saboteurs try to push us through those negative emotions and motivate us negatively. They might generate success, but they will not generate happiness. The sage, on the other hand, likes to pull us forward into action and generates our highest success and sustained happiness because we're being pulled forward by positive emotions. So the question is, are negative emotions good for you? Are they good for you? It's an important question. And this is where I like to ask a highly related question. Is pain good for you? Now, if you take a pause for just a minute and ask yourself that question and consider it, I hope that the answer that you came up with is yes, pain is good for you for very brief moments of time. The analogy is your hand on the hot stove. You want to feel that pain so that you remove the hand and don't do extensive damage. And that is the same thing that we want to, the way we want to think about our negative emotions. They're helpful as an alert signal. They're a trigger to let you know that you're in your saboteur brain and that you want to shift out of that. Because when we stay in negative emotion, we actually block our ability to see clearly and respond in a way that will create the best possible outcome. Negative emotion is essentially a saboteur hijacking, and it's that point of interception when you can catch the negative thought and you are put at choice. And I'm going to be sharing with you what that looks like. But first, I just want to do a quick awareness exercise. I call this the peak performance line. And when you're below that line, you're sitting in negative emotions. Some of them are listed here: fear, doubt, disappointment, etc. When you're below the line, you're going to underperform relative to your full potential. But when you're above the line and experiencing emotions like joy and curiosity and gratitude, creativity, that is the zone of peak performance. And so I just want to ask you to take a step back and consider, in the last hour before we joined together today, were you mostly above the line or below the line? And now ask some other questions. Do you like the answer that you came up with? And does that reflect the experience of life that you envision and desire for yourself? And if you were to master this area, what impact could that have on your life? All right, let's move on and talk about the sage. This is where we start to talk about how you activate that right-hand brain region. So the sage, as we know, lives in the part of the brain that's associated with our positive emotions. It's where we have access to peace and calm in those moments when life is happening to us. It's what allows us to have clear-headed focus. And it's where our creativity and our intuition and our big picture thinking reside. This is what allows us to pull back and consider all of the inputs and take that long-term perspective. If I'm looking back at this moment in my life in another 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, or at the end of my life, what's really important right now? What really matters? This is being in the sage part of your brain is what generates your highest success with sustained happiness. And I want to talk to you about a really foundational concept as part of mental fitness. And this is the notion of the sage perspective. And that perspective is that every outcome and circumstance can be turned into a gift and opportunity. And I like to share what's called the stallion story. You may have heard a version of this before. It's an ancient fable. It comes out of Taoist China. And I'll tell a very abbreviated version of this. There was an old farmer who lived in a village, and he had a beautiful prize stallion. And he entered the stallion into a competition, and the stallion won. His neighbors came by to congratulate him on his victory. And the farmer had a very strange response. He said, "Who knows what is good and what is bad?" The neighbors thought that was quite a strange way to respond, but they left. Now, a few days later, some thieves came in the night and stole away this prize stallion, whose value had increased significantly because it had won the prize. The neighbors came by to share their condolences with the farmer, who once again responded, "Who knows what is good and what is bad?" Again, they were puzzled by his response, but they went home. Now, the stallion was willful, and he, of his own accord, escaped from his captors. And on his way back to the farmer, he encountered a herd of brood mares, and he befriended them and brought them back with them to the farmer's location. The neighbors came by to congratulate him on this windfall and this wonderful fortune that had befallen him. Again, his response was the same: "Who knows what is good and what is bad?" Fast forward another couple of weeks, the farmer's son is riding one of these wild mares and gets thrown to the ground and breaks a leg. The neighbors come by to express their condolences once again. Same response. Who knows what is good and what is bad? Well, fast forward another few weeks and war has broken out in the region, and all of the young men are consigned to military service. All of the young men except the farmer's son, who was not able to go to service because of his broken leg. And again, the response, who knows what is good and what is bad? So the question that this brings us to is, which perspective is true? The saboteur would say that this is terrible, this is bad. Nothing good could possibly come from these terrible circumstances. Whereas the sage would always take the perspective, even in those terrible moments, that this is a gift, that there is a prize. And that fable just illustrates how the fluidity of life and how things can shift so quickly. So what is the answer to the question? Which perspective is true? Well, it's whichever one you believe becomes true. It really becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you walk around determining that the bad things in your life or the negative outcomes are bad, then you will attract more of that to you. If you turn your attention and lean into the sage perspective, you will find a way to turn any negative circumstance into something positive. Which brings us to the final mental muscle involved in mental fitness, which is self-command. Now, I guarantee you that you do not have complete control of your mind, but thanks to neuroplasticity, what we've learned is that we can change our own brains and create the neural pathways that allow us to activate the sage region of the brain so that we do have access to the positive emotions and the ability to create the positive outcomes. And we do this through something called PQ reps. They're done in 10-second increments. And we know from doing this, from functional MRI, that when people do this, we can actually see the right-hand region of the brain being activated. And I just want to invite you to experience this for just a moment. So if you will, take your thumb and your forefinger and rub them together just so gently and with such attention to detail that you can feel the fingertip ridges in each of your fingers. And as you're doing that, what you're doing is you've stopped the chatter in your brain, which is typically there and incredibly active, and you've quieted down that region of your brain, and you've actually created access to the right-hand region of the brain. And it's through a series of these ongoing exercises that you actually build up the sage region of your brain, so you have access to those emotions that fuel the results that you're looking for. So mental fitness, it is a very simple operating system that involves three things. Number one, it's having the ability to intercept your negative emotions so that you don't get overcome by them. Number two, you're shifting out of that saboteur region of your brain and into the right-hand region, the sage region of your brain. And then lastly, you're making a choice. First of all, you're choosing the sage perspective, and then you're choosing a response that's appropriate, that's actually going to create an outcome that you want, given the circumstances. This is all done through technology in a mental fitness app, the Positive Intelligence Mental Fitness app, which contains all of the learnings and a mental fitness gym where you perform these simple exercises on a daily basis. So the question that I get asked a lot is it really possible to just shift from the saboteur to a sage response, even in tough challenges? And the answer is yes, but the speed and the depth of the shift depends on your mental muscle strength. So just like building up a bicep muscle, it takes time, it takes repetitions, and it takes consistency. Now, the other thing that we know is that the lasting change that we're looking for, 20% of insight, new insight will get you 20% of the way there. But what's required and what is accounts for 80% of the change is building up new mental muscles. Now, you may have had the experience of going to a training and you get all excited, you learn some new things and you're motivated to implement them. But then you notice 2, 3, 4 weeks later, all of those insights have faded away and all of that promise has really fizzled out. That's because the mental muscle piece isn't there. And that's the beauty of the mental fitness training, is it gives you both aspects of this. Now, what we know from having applied this to hundreds of thousands of people is that success requires intense initial practice. We're looking at 15 minutes a day for 6 to 8 weeks. But once you accumulate a critical mass of new mental muscles, your peak performance starts to feel effortless and everything else in your life starts to shift. Your relationship dynamics shift, your overall sense of well-being and peace and harmony in your life truly does shift. And as I've said, over 500,000 people globally have been through this program, including Fortune 100 executives, and it's been adopted at some of the big brand organizations that you see listed here. Now, the great thing about mental fitness is it has many, many applications. It applies to stress management, performance management, working and living with difficult people, and all of the other things that you see listed here on this slide. So it's going to have an impact, not just on your work performance, your professional life, but truly in all areas of your personal life as well. So what's been most valuable so far? I'd love it if you could drop something in the chat. I'm curious to hear.
And Trisha, we're going to also, when we wrap up, get some big takeaways as well.
Okay.
This is really great. Yeah.
Let's do this. And let's keep going because I'm mindful of the time. So my invitation to you is to be one of the 5. Be one of the 5 people who actually lives up to their full potential and leans into that opportunity. And the invitation is to join the positive intelligence movement that truly is becoming a global movement. And today, what I'm sharing with you is an opportunity to participate in a 7-week foundational mental fitness training program where we boost the self-command muscle and weaken the judge, weaken your top accomplice saboteurs, really learn how to adopt the SAGE perspective and develop 3 of the key SAGE powers of empathy, the navigate and activate powers, and learn about the different applications of the PQ operating system. The program includes access to the app for a full 12 months beyond the 7-week program. And it comes with all of the video content and weekly Zoom calls, the PQ gym to do the mental fitness exercises, and access to the global community. It also comes with support and accountability and coaching. Now, the full value of this is $2,400, but that is not what I would be proposing today. Today, for webinar attendees only, whether you're live or virtual, the price is $695, which I'm very pleased to share. Now, how can you massively improve your performance, impact, and well-being? Well, the invitation is to take action now by taking out your phone and texting just one word to me right now. And here's my phone number. It's also in the chat. And all you need to do is text me, yes, I'm in. Maybe I'm interested, but need some more information. I'd love to jump on a call. Or no, it's not for me. So that's the invitation. And I appreciate the opportunity today. And I thank you.
Very wonderful. Thank you, Trisha. My goodness. Let's get us back in gallery mode. I'm so grateful to be enlightened by what you just presented and, the call to action for us to take the next step, because, the impact on our lives is really huge with mental fitness in your program. So this is super great. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sure.
would love to get some big takeaways before we complete our program today. What was your biggest aha? And I'm also curious, where do you think the opportunity is for you?
Well, I put in the chat that I put very briefly that I've always thought of the 10 saboteurs as just one sort of overarching saboteur. But it's really good to identify those individual types of saboteurs. I've done a lot of training in the past. I did a particular program with a previous employer before I was my own employer. And that was called Breakthrough, and it was based on identifying, that voice in your head, which we kind of called Igor. So I always think of that voice in my head as shut up, Igor, so I've got that really well. I feel like I've got that quite well organized, and I have done a lot of work around the mental fitness side of things myself. So I tend to look at the positives in a situation. I tend to automatically look at the positives instead of the negative in any situation. I've heard that story many times about the farmer with the stallion, and
Yes.
I totally get it. It's that Zen approach. You just never know, and it's always your perspective.
Mm-hmm.
That there's actually techniques to build that mental fitness is a huge thing for me. There was one thing that I did want to ask, if there's enough time. I find that the struggle for me is in the very fine line between what I've done in the past, which is, I don't know if you've ever heard the term of a spiritual bypass.
Yes.
But like this idea that, it's okay, I can't have any negative feelings. There's always a positive in everything, and I can't think about those things. So what actually happens is I push down that negative emotion. So I'm kind of interested to hear your thoughts on that, Trisha.
Yes, thank you for the question. So I am a big believer in allowing ourselves to experience our emotions. But what we don't want to do is get caught in the negative emotional undertow where you just spin and spin, and it just ends up feeding on itself. So I do encourage you to sit with your emotions and to actually be very present with them and allow yourself to feel them, but not to do that for an extended period of time. So a couple of minutes to really feel it in your body, and be very present with where you're actually experiencing the emotion in your body, and allowing it and allowing that energy to process. And the more that you're present with it, the quicker it starts to dissolve and break up and release from your body. So that's how I think about it. Because you're right, doing the bypass, it never works. It just never really goes away.
Right. And I tend to have it stuck in my body. Like I've got, tendonitis, and I've got tonsillitis, and I'm starting to clear them now, but they've been ongoing and just moving around for years, because
Right.
I hold on to it, so I appreciate that feedback. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
I think it was good to get the reminder that we can shift things, because I think we kind of know it, but we need to be reminded, okay, this is what's going on.
Yes.
Feel it, acknowledge it, and then go thwop. And because, as you said, we need that bad. I think part of it is you need the bad to truly appreciate the good. But it's also, it is part of who we are. I wondered, as you were talking about the physical ramifications. I mean, clearly, I do believe that your brain is incredibly powerful, and so you can, you can make yourself sick. You can also, in many cases, make yourself well. But when you do actually have something that's going on, how does it tie in to to all of this?
You mean when you have a physical condition going on?
Yeah.
So a physical condition is typically a manifestation of an emotional condition that has been left unattended for a long time. So it's really the downstream, it's the lagging indicator of an emotional situation. And so I think that's the beauty of this technique, is that and by the way, I didn't share this part of my story, but I I ended up growing a very large, what turned out to be benign tumor in my stomach. And the doctors have never given me this diagnosis, but I'm 100% convinced that that was a result of repressed emotions.
Oh yeah, it was just kind of churning along in there.
And so that's why this work has been so transformational for me, is because I recognize what's causing the behavioral patterns, which was causing me to avoid my emotions, which was, that is what the hyperachiever does. It's success at the expense of your own well-being, basically. And so just recognizing those patterns and not allowing them to dictate the way that I live day to day is, is life changing. And that's really the opportunity here, is to, yes, listen to your emotions, allow them, and then use them as a signal to redirect into something that's going to serve you.
Right. I did find it curious that there were twice as many saboteurs as Sage. Is there any thought as to why that was?
That was all the result of the factor analysis. So it was really looking at lots and lots of data gathered across lots and lots of people and overlaying it with that scientific research.
To me, it would seem like maybe we trend towards the negative.
We do. The human brain its original function was survival.
Right. Fight or flight.
Fight or flight, which is why there's that natural pull into that negative side of our brains, why that part of the brain is so strong. But the beauty of having just the 5 sage powers is the simplicity of it.
Right.
I know that in any situation, I only have to ask myself, do I need to be exhibiting empathy right now? Curiosity? Creativity? Do I need to be taking that long-term, lifetime looking back perspective? It's super simple, and it always gets me the best outcomes.
What are those 5 stages? Empathy, curiosity,
innovate, navigate, and activate, which is taking bold action.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Course.
Well, sparkle fingers for you, Trisha Bright. My goodness, bringing so much brightness and great education to all of us, and really life-changing, Trisha. I mean, today's program, you really had us have a paradigm shift. And I know that's part of your mission, is to do that. So we thank you.
Thank you. Yes, a lot of us live at the effect of our emotions. The opportunity is to use our emotions to be more effective.
Yeah, beautiful. And you're standing for that and guiding and mentoring people to do that.
Yes, thank you.
Oh my goodness, we so appreciate you. Great. Thank you. Thank you. Everybody, big kisses for Trisha. And let's complete our program. And we're so excited for the replay to be available. Trisha, it's going to be available in 24 hours. And we know that a lot of people around the world are really going to watch, really absorb this and take the next step with you, because this is really important. The time is now to take action and to learn from teachers and mentors that can make the biggest difference in your life. And so really thank you, Trisha. Beautiful. And gosh, we just loved having our global platform welcoming you to our stage. And so as we complete, thank you. Tomorrow's program, we just continue with the goodness, sisters. We just love it. We really are out to help transform corporate. And so if you have an interest in taking your programs, your resources, your movement, whatever it is, and impacting business, we want you to come be part of our program tomorrow. Really, really great. And of course, we're celebrating St. Patrick's Day. We have to have a celebration. So wear your green, inviting you to that. And then finally, our council, we serve you. Our purpose and mission is to promote you, showcase you, highlight you, give you a global platform to rise and shine. And so Trisha is the most perfect example of that today. We so thank you. And then, if you have interest, we know you do, in learning more about the C-Suite Network, Women's Coaching and Consulting Council, I'm easy to find. Calendly, Kathleen Caldwell, all one word. Schedule a time. Let's chat. Let's talk about what's next for you, what's new for you, and what's possible. So with that, thank you, thank you, thank you. Trisha Bright, big kisses. You brought a lot of brightness to our stage. We thank you. So bye for now, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.